Hey guys, today we're driving the 2023 Kia EV6 GT. I've been super excited to get behind the wheel of this. I've heard it's absolutely insane, and after spending a week with it, I can confirm that's the case. We actually took this out to the track earlier this weekend on Memorial Day, took it out to Gingerman Raceway, roasted some tires. Wow! Played around with drift mode, had a lot of fun in this EV6 GT. We'll post a link to that video in the top comment. So this video is going to focus on my experience this week in this car on the street. Let's walk you around it. We'll show you what it looks like inside and out, and then we'll take it for a drive and give you guys some driving impressions. Let's start on the outside. So first of all, this is painted in runway red. Pretty nice looking color on this EV6 GT. Some basic specs and info: 576 horsepower, dual motor, all-wheel drive. We have 21-inch wheels with Goodyear Eagle F1 tires. This has electronic dampers, an electronically controlled rear limited slip differential, and yes, it can go very sideways, and yes, it is incredibly fast. 800 volt charging architecture, 10 to 80% in about 18 minutes on a DC fast charger, and a range of 206 miles on a full charge. Basically, with this EV6 GT, you are sacrificing a bit of range, bit of efficiency for outright power and performance. These 21-inch wheels definitely suck a little bit of range out of this car, but they look so good, I'm willing to make that sacrifice. For most people, the standard Kia EV6 is probably the best option, but if that's just not enough, you want all the performance, you want the fastest electric vehicle that Kia, Hyundai, Genesis offer, this is your answer. There's the charge port. You don't have to open a door or anything, just quick, easy access. You've got a charge meter right here. Push that button to close it. I love the packaging on the EV6. This, to me, technically it's a crossover SUV, but really it looks just like a crazy designed wagon. And you get wagon and SUV-like space in the back. A little bit of room under this cargo cover for storage here. You've got two levers on both sides where you can fold down these rear seats. Look at all that space. You can throw mountain bikes back there, furniture, sleep, whatever you need to do in the back of this EV6. There's plenty of room for it. Interestingly, there are actually settings for the speed at which the power liftgate opens and closes in the infotainment. That's pretty cool. Like a lot of other Kia models, you have to unlock the rear seats after you fold them down, which is a bit annoying if you're always folding these up and down to put bikes or stuff in the back. For some reason, Kia doesn't trust gravity, but we do get adjustable backrests, which are very nice. Gotta go to this side, fold this up now, and then adjust the backrest. There we go. Okay. So we can take a little bit of a look in the back seat here, and then we'll take a look at the front of this interior, because there are a few changes that Kia's made compared to the regular EV6. You'll notice lots of Alcantara. We have a Meridian surround sound system, which we'll test out in this video. We've got lots of little neon accents, from seat piping to contrast stitching to the GT logo on the steering wheel. Kind of a theme going on in this EV6 GT. Also the brake calipers. In the back, tons of room in this flat floor. For some reason, the tire mobility kit's back here. We've got two USB-C ports, air vents. Here's what your armrest looks like. This is clever. You can have cup holders or just a little storage bin that slides back and forth. Little sunroof up there. And pretty much the rest of this interior is very familiar. It's just like the EV6 Wind we tested last year. Here's your key fob, detonator style, just like the Kia Stinger. You can park this in and out, remote start it, lock and lock, pop the trunk, alarm, all that good stuff. Let's take a look at these bright neon green brake calipers. This car held up impressively well on track this week. We put it through quite a few sessions, quite a few hot laps, and pretty much the only thing that failed was a rear tire after an excessive amount of drifting, and that was all my fault. So I take full responsibility. No overheating, no battery management issues, didn't really cut power. We kept the charge above 50% or so, and it was just awesome on track. Suspension's a little bit softer in this EV6 GT. It's not as stiff and hardcore of a track machine as, you know, something like the Porsche Taycan, but it was really, really fun out on the road course. We took it to Gingerman Raceway. It was super neutral, super well balanced. Brakes held up, battery held up, everything seemed to just do great, which was very impressive for an EV. I know vehicles like the Mustang Mach-E GT have struggled with heat management with their battery systems. That's not the case here in this EV6. Not much to see up front, but we'll show it to you anyway. Tiny little Frunk. And everything else is pretty much just hidden under all this running gear. Pretty crazy design and looks to this EV6, even in standard form. It kind of has some weird supercar proportions. The slope of the hood, the front end, the way the rear end comes around and skirts up with this little spoiler in the back. It's pretty wild looking. Pricing on this is $62,000, and for what you get, the performance you get, that's a pretty good deal. This is faster than the Model Y Performance. It's probably the quickest EV at this price point. I mean, 576 horsepower, nothing to scoff at, and as you'll see here in a minute on our street drive, it's pretty quick. So we'll just quickly go over this interior. Nice materials, nice ergonomics, auto up-down windows on the left, brightness adjustments. You have 1 of 100 illumination settings. You can pop the tailgate, pop the charge port, parking brake, traction off, and yes, you can turn everything completely off in this EV6 GT. I love how conveniently located your drive mode switches are. So Eco, Normal, Sport, and that'll change throttle response. Eco will kind of limit your outright power, and Normal will kind of blend the throttle a little bit more. Sport mode's a bit more aggressive, and if you want to go full insanity, press the GT mode button. That'll actually kind of disable traction control a little bit, give you a little bit more slip angle. And you can also select a My Drive mode, where you have a bunch of different settings and parameters that you can choose to your liking right here. Very nice. We have wired CarPlay and Android Auto. Pretty typical for any Kia product these days. Some ambient lighting in here that you can adjust and choose different colors. Heated seats, heated steering wheel. The only funky thing in this interior is this switchable display, which you can switch between kind of your quick access buttons here, volume, tune, knobs, and then your climate controls. At least they're constant controls and not hidden in the infotainment. Slightly different dash design in this GT. We've got a GT badge over here to the right. Kind of looks like it's almost wrapped a little bit. Looks cool. Down here we've got wireless charging, our gear selector, on off. Underneath this big piece right here, there is just a ton of storage, a huge area to put a bag or whatever. Completely flat floor. There's a lot of space in this EV6 GT. The packaging is really impressive. Here's what your reverse camera looks like. You can zoom in and out of your 360 cam. That's kind of cool. And then you also get a, let's see here, we'll exit this. You get some quick access buttons to your parking cameras right down there, which is very nice. A little bit of a center console there, actually a lot of a center console. That's pretty deep. That's nice to have. Cup holders right here, and then this piece that you can pull out for a little bit extra storage space. Decent amount of room here to put a water bottle. Yeah, I mean, as a usable vehicle, EV6 GT is getting good marks, and the EV6 on its own is one of my favorite EVs out there. Let's start off in, we'll start off in Eco mode. I think it's time to take this out for a drive. We won't dwell too much on screens and infotainment. It's all pretty straightforward, and we went over a lot of this in the Kia EV6 Wind edition that we drove earlier last year. So, setting off. You can see we've got our power distribution display right there. I've noticed that eco mode. It'll kind of prioritize sending power to the rear wheels just to kind of make this a little bit more efficient, not engaging that front motor until you really get up to higher speeds. Paddle shifters behind the wheel can adjust our level of regen braking. It'll default to level 3, which is a nice level of regen, and you'll get regen right off the bat, right upon startup. You can select this to basically just coast, or you hear that beep, and I-pedal engages, and that's basically just one pedal driving. At speeds below 25 miles an hour, you'll hear a bit of a hum just to notify pedestrians that you are an electric vehicle driving nearby. And you can even go into the infotainment and engage some kind of active fake noises that this EV6 makes. We played around with that a little bit on track. Probably just going to leave everything silent today. And you'll hear under hard acceleration, there's a little bit of electric motor noise, which sounds pretty cool. Ready? Oh, we're in eco mode. Let's just go full GT mode. The acceleration here is nuts. It's hard to explain through video. It doesn't really come through on camera as being as intense as it is. You need to sit in this thing and feel it. The 30 to 60, it feels like launch control from 30 miles an hour. We're spinning the front tires there just a little bit. There isn't a ton of mechanical grip from these Goodyear Eagle F1 tires, but there's enough. It's a good balance between low levels of NVH, tire noise, probably some efficiency in there too, and kind of a more performance-oriented tire. This is pretty quiet at highway speeds, 75 miles an hour. Not a lot of wind noise. I have good visibility. And we have to be in Eco, Normal, or Sport to engage cruise control. Of course, we get all of Kia's driving assistance tech, highway driving assist, steering assist, lane change assist, and of course adaptive cruise control. And all those systems seem to work well enough. Pretty comfortable highway cruiser. This was great to drive out to South Haven. Charlie from Daily Motor made a little bit more of an in-depth video on this EV6 and what it was like to road trip. He stopped at one charge location, fast charged it, again 10 to 80% in 18 minutes on a 350 kilowatt charger, which is pretty fast. Even though this only has 206 miles of range, you can fast charge this and it makes it a viable road trip option in the EV space, which is pretty cool. The most impressive thing about this car is that it still maintains its insane level of acceleration, even at highway speeds. We'll back off here, do a little pull, and we're just in normal mode right now. Ready, set, and then you engage GT mode, and it gets even crazier. The throttle response is really, really sharp in GT mode. You can kind of, it's funny, you can cycle through the different drive modes and leave your foot on the accelerator at the same level, and it'll just kind of change your level of acceleration or deceleration. Honestly though, I've just been driving this around in GT mode the most this week. It's the most fun, it's the most exciting. Suspension doesn't get too stiff. In GT mode, you have this little torque meter down here, 0 to 100%. That's cool. And the thing about this too, you have to remember, because this is an electric vehicle, it's 576 horsepower immediately. There's no torque curve, it's just all there, all the time, depending on what drive mode you're in. got your turn signal blind spot cameras, which I find super useful in this car. Little things like that day to day make this a less stressful driving experience, especially in traffic. There isn't a ton of feedback here from your driver inputs. Steering's pretty numb. Brake pedal feels okay for an EV. A little bit squishy, but it's easy enough to modulate. The party piece here definitely is the acceleration, but while we had this on track, I was most impressed with just how balanced and easily adjustable this chassis was. You can go from understeer to oversteer very quickly. Mid-corner, if you wanted to change the rotation of the vehicle, you could just let off the throttle a little bit. Drift mode was really exciting because this thing slid like an absolute champ. It was incredible. I've never drifted an EV quite like this before. We went pretty sideways in the Porsche Taycan, but that just felt like drifting an all-wheel drive car. This almost felt rear-driven while we were sliding it around. It was like easy mode. It was pretty incredible. I kind of roasted the tires a little bit earlier than I wanted to, and that's probably why we're not going to experience that on the street today. But as just a cool feature to have, if you're in the wet, maybe in the snow, explore drift mode a little bit in your EV6 GT, I think that kind of makes it worth it for some enthusiasts to get this over the standard EV6. It is a bit of a pedal dance and a process to get into drift mode. I think you have to be in park, foot on the brake, you hold traction control off, put it into GT mode while you're in GT mode, then pull the paddles for a couple seconds and that will engage drift mode. The front motor in this EV6 GT is actually a little bit more powerful than the rear motor, so when you are in drift mode, you have to kind of lightly throttle it in a slide. If you go full throttle, that'll pull you out of the slide. So about mid to 3/4 throttle will give you the most rear bias. But it's probably one of the easiest cars I've ever slid around, except for like something like the BRZ or GR86. We got to do a quick launch control. All right, we'll do regen. I'm just going to get right into it. Ready, set, go. A little bit of front wheel spin, but traction control mitigates any excessive slippage. I've got to hand it to Kia. They've done a really nice job programming this drivetrain to handle the power, the traction control system, the way that two electric motors interact. This is really expert level tuning here. And it's a lot of fun on the street. And I was very impressed with how it did on track. It's just so neutral. It loves to rotate. There's a little bit of body roll. There's a little bit of squish to the suspension. Again, this is set up for a little bit more softness, a little bit more ride comfort. But I like that. It makes it a livable daily. On our rough Michigan roads, I welcome the softer suspension in this EV6 GT. I wouldn't mind a little bit more differentiation between drive modes and suspension settings, but I mean, it kind of lets you feel the weight of this thing. It doesn't let you forget that you're hustling around a 4,800 pound electric vehicle. While we're just cruising here, let's go in and do a quick sound system test. I have not heard this Meridian sound system very much this week. I hear it's pretty good. Switch to our volume control here. So, summing up some thoughts on the EV6 GT. I'm pretty impressed with this thing this week. The biggest surprise is just how well the battery management works. I don't know what Kia is doing differently from other brands, but they figured it out. There was no overheating on the track. There's no overheating on the street. I don't feel like it's throttling power. We've kept this above about 50% charge all week, and it seems to really perform well above that level. Fast charging is a breeze if you can find a charger at the speeds that you want, and living with this day to day has been a real pleasure. The tech works well enough. I think it's priced incredibly well for the performance that this offers. The wheels are probably a little bit too big and it looks a bit strange, but I've got to say, so many EVs tend to be a bit dull despite their incredible performance. This EV6 manages to be fun to drive everywhere. And I think that's the big takeaway that I've had with this week, is that it kind of takes a driving experience and makes it more entertaining in a way that I don't think a lot of other manufacturers have been able to achieve. Probably for most buyers, the GT isn't really what's needed. It's probably overkill, but if you have a couple screws loose up there and you want almost 600 horsepower out of your electric vehicle, or you just want to scare the heck out of passengers every now and then, or take this thing out to the track and drift it around, the EV6 GT really, this thing delivers. It's very, very impressive. And again, shout out to Kia for letting us take it out to the track this week. Not a lot of manufacturers are even willing to let their EVs out on track because they can't handle it. Before we took this out to Gingerman Raceway, we actually had a call with a couple people from the engineering team and PR team, and they basically just said, send it. Here's how to put it into drift mode. Here's what the ideal drive settings are for GT mode. Everything should last fine. Brakes, electric motor, battery, heat. It's all pretty good. And they were right. That doesn't get old. It's so fast from every speed. I think on the back straight of Gingerman we were hitting 125, 127 miles per hour, and this just took it in stride and kept pulling hard all the way up to the braking zone. Pretty amazing. We'll do one pull out here on the straightaway. It really pulls 125 miles an hour. It's properly quick. Before we wrap up, let's test out a couple of these active sound design sounds. We'll do moderate change. Start off with stylish. Here's dynamic. This kind of drones away constantly, which is a bit odd. Not a fan of that. Just sounds like a CVT. That's kind of cool. Cyber, and then you can customize your own sound. Probably the biggest fan of stylish, but again, we'll just leave that off for now. All right, guys, those are my thoughts on the 2023 Kia EV6 GT. This was a fun one this week. Thoroughly enjoyed my time on track. Again, thanks to Kia for letting us take this out and beat up a set of tires. Pretty good option in the EV space, and if you are performance-minded and a little bit insane, probably one of the best choices out there for under $100,000. Cool. All right, that'll be it for this one. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos later this week, and if you haven't already, check out our new live stream Twitch account. I've got the link in the description for that. Substitute Topher and I are live streaming on a weekly basis, giving you guys some first impressions of the cars that we get in and test before we film the videos. You can ask us questions, and we usually answer them. Cool. That's it for this one. We'll see you guys later. Take care.